Welcome back to the Mintner Method. I'm your host, Andrew Mintner, and on today's video, we are going to take a look at the Big Ten matchup between Minnesota and USC. Now, this is kind of a polarizing matchup for me, as weeks ago, I didn't do a video on it, but I was on a USC versus Michigan. I felt like, they had the chance to take advantage of a defense that, didn't bring back a lot of returning production. And, I just felt like, that it would translate. That taught me a lot about probably what we're going to see in this matchup today. Now, we are sticking with the trend that I've been covering in pretty much all my videos so far this season. We are looking at teams who are elite on early downs. This is just obviously, this is not a cherry-pick style stat. It's a stat that makes football sense. If you're good on early downs, you are going to have less third downs, which are higher leverage situations, which leads to less volatile, overall gameplay, and you have more control of the game script. So the thing we're going to have in this matchup is USC versus Minnesota is going to be a strength-on-strength matchup, especially from the defensive side of the ball. So USC is going to have the fourth highest pass rate on first and second down. It's nearly 60%, 59.1%. And they're pretty solid. They're 46th overall in early down EPA. Then their rush is, it's a little bit above average, 59th. They're giving them the 47th overall early down EPA ranking. Now, when you go to Minnesota, they are elite at defending the pass. And so, in my opinion, if you were to take advantage of this elite defense, you would need to be explosive. And that's not really the USC style of offense. It is more of a dink and dunk offense, and we will get into that here in a little bit. Now, they are 56th overall in early rush EPA, and this constitutes them to be 14th overall in early downs defensive EPA. So that's elite level, right? Now, when we go to the offensive side of the ball for Minnesota, one thing that really stands out to me is I would have thought this number would be a lot lower. I thought they would be near the top running the ball on first and second down. And the reason I say that is because they have constantly in the PJ Fleck era ranked in the top 10 in rush rate over expectancy. So that's a statistic where you're rushing on what your rate is on passing downs or standard downs, and they always rank top 10. They're up there with the academy teams. They obviously do not have an rush rate over expectancy as high as them. Nobody does. That's neither here nor there. But being that they're passing 52.5% of the time on first and second down tells me a lot. Tells me they're kind of trying to move in that direction, but they're not having a ton of success. And that is kind of concerning. 99th overall in early down EPA is not where a team that I'm looking at backing where I want them. But the reason I can kind of look away from that is simply because we're not backing them as a favorite. We're backing them as an underdog here. Now, USC, pretty average. 60th and 59th, 51st overall. Nothing really to write home about that, right? So when we go into the advanced statistics side, this is where we kind of get to see the strength-on-strength matchup, right? So 45th in overall efficiency, but 110th in explosiveness. And that is going to be going up against elite level efficiency and explosiveness allowed on the Minnesota side of the ball. Now, even to put it in even better, context, Minnesota is 15th in overall defensive back havoc rate. So they have a 9.1% havoc rate that come from their defensive backs. That's as high, pretty much equal to their defensive front seven havoc rate. Now, that's very rare to see normally because, there are more metrics that correlate to the defensive front seven havoc. You have tackles for losses, pressures, things like that, right? Fumbles forced, things of that nature. Usually with defensive backs, it's, passes defended. And they might get in on a tackle for loss or something like that. Very rare, though, right? So that is something to note here. Now, one thing is, USC is efficient at rushing the ball, not explosive. This is kind of like a pattern you will see as we keep moving right, okay? This is the thing that I need to show you. 61st in pass efficiency, 121st in pass explosiveness. That is just not going to cut it. Like, that type of scheme is not going to cut it here. So 8th in pass efficiency, pass predicted points per attempt, and 3rd in passing explosiveness allowed. That's just, that strength is not as strong as Minnesota's strength. And so, but that is what USC is going to do. They are not going to switch up the game plan. Lincoln Riley is not going to all of a sudden come out in I formation or 12 personnel a ton. That's not going to happen. They're not going to do that. So when I look back over here on the offensive side of the ball, even though this isn't really part of the cap, it is important to know, like, if there are strengths or, where they would come from for Minnesota. So as we saw in the Michigan matchup, they did not throw for any significant amount of yards. Actually, it was pretty abysmal and just an ugly-ass game to watch from a quarterback perspective when they played Michigan. So the thing is, Minnesota is pretty average across the board offensively. And for what that's worth, so is USC defensively. So there's going to be times where they have success. They are going to have success in certain areas. They're just not. Neither they are that bad, and USC is neither that good on defense. So there's going to be pockets of success. The real thing will be is it going to be enough? Now USC has done really well when it comes to defending the pass. That is not really Minnesota's overall, game plan. They like to row the boat, which means they like to play a lot of 12 personnel. They like to run the ball, time of possession, control the clock type game. This right here, 125th in rushing explosiveness, is not a good look. Not against this litany of Big Ten teams that USC is going to play. And I'm going to show you why they just, this is a bad look overall. So when we go to the schedules, USC, their win against LSU, very good. That team is not built like Michigan is or Minnesota is, for that matter of fact. So when we look at the passing overall, which is important to look from the game log standpoint, right? Or, hold on, let's look overall, right? So we're averaging 7 yards per attempt for Miller Moss. Very solid, right? Now, when we're looking at the game log here, elite level against LSU, 10.2 yards per attempt, 37 attempts, very good. This is the type of game here against Michigan where if this is how they come out and they're going to have to throw the ball 50-plus times, they're going to lose. I mean, I don't even want to say they won't cover the spread. They could lose. They will lose. If they have to throw the ball 52 times against Minnesota, in Minnesota, mind you, that's not going to be a good look. 5.4 yards per attempt is not going to cut it. That's just not going to cut it. You're going to have to do better than that. And then the flip side to that is when we look at the rushing side, they came out hair on fire to beat Wisconsin in the second half last week. But this is the thing. This not saying that Minnesota is going to average 6.3 yards per rush attempt, because they are not as good as Michigan. Let's get that. Let's just put that out there right now. Not that I think Michigan is amazing, but from a talent perspective, they are not as good as Michigan. And I don't think anybody would disagree with that. If they did, they're obviously delusional. But these are the type of attempts they are going to see. They're going to see 35, 40 attempts on the ground probably. Now, if that falls anywhere in the realm of 5 yards per carry, it's going to be a long ass day for USC. Um, Now, when you flip back here, you're going to see that the offense is not really looking to run the ball. Like obviously they did really well against Utah State. I mean, the game script meant for them to run the ball well. And they actually did decent against Wisconsin. 161 rushing yards. But that's not who they are. They want to throw the ball. And they want to throw the ball and forever basically. That's the Lincoln Riley scheme. They're going to outthrow you. Now, when we look at Minnesota on paper, they've had a rough season to start. Their only victories are over Rhode Island and Nevada, and they've had some close games. Now, the North Carolina game, obviously very tough to lose on a field goal that you miss opening day. The Iowa game, they just got demolished. We're going to take a look at the game log for that real quick so we can get an understanding of how they lost that game. Oh, shocker. It was because Iowa rushed for 272 rushing yards on 45 attempts. None of that is surprising. Like, we know that is the way to beat them, okay? Michigan tried to do it, but they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it as well, even though they were leading that game by double digits for the vast majority. They did not get the cover, and they only won by 3. But again, if you're going to beat them, mercilessly and cover spreads and dominate them, you have to do it to this tune. You have to run the ball a good amount, and you have to achieve this type of yards per attempt. And that's not USC. USC is not going to do that. Now, when we look back here, the most important thing when attacking USC is going to be, like we just said, is running the ball. Now, Darius Taylor is a monster, okay? Last year, we covered him with his 799 rushing yards in only 6 games. And in reality, it was only 5 games. These 5 here, okay? And he just dominated. And that has kind of held true here. Now, he has struggled against elite defensive lines like, Iowa, like Michigan. And, he did okay against Rhode Island coming off of not playing in his injury in North Carolina. This is the type of game that I feel like he's going to get cut loose, basically. He will have, a benchmark game, essentially. And the flip side to that is also Marcus Major is probably going to get himself some attempts too. He's averaging 8.5 attempts per game. And that's going to be the game plan. And as we looked at these statistics, that is the biggest weakness for USC's defense. And it's an achievable, feat that Minnesota can do that. Now, when we come to look at the line, we'll see where it's sitting at. It's at 8.5. Okay. When I did my starts of the week, it was 9.5. Now, I don't know where that's going to end. It could end at down to 7.5. It could go back up. I have no idea. I'm not the lines makers. I don't make the lines. Obviously, that's way out of my forte. But I don't really care if it goes down to 7.5 or if it goes up to 9.5. Minnesota is the side here. I just think they're being overlooked in this situation. And at home, they're not. I don't think there's a giant, if you were a box score person and you're like, oh, well, Minnesota only lost by 3 to Michigan. Oh, there's a prime letdown spot. Yeah, well, they were never going to win that game. They were never in it. They were never, on the cusp of winning that game. They were playing from behind the whole game. They came all the way back, and they covered the number, But on the flip side of that, USC has the potential look-ahead spot to Penn State next week. They need to win this game to secure, that being a actual big game worth playing. And they're going to get Penn State at home. This also comes off of a brutal 3-game stretch. Now, I know you're like, oh, well, it's just Michigan. It's just Wisconsin. They're no good. Minnesota, they're average at best. Yeah, I get all that. Okay. But this is USC in a totally different geographical location for 3 weeks in a row. This is not like normal to them. I know like I don't like to look at angles that are, not data based or data driven because I don't think that is looking at something through the best possible lens. But when you're adding those angles to already established data, it looks like confirmation bias, but it is just one more feather in the hat. I feel like this is a look ahead spot for USC, but that's not really the main cap here. They are not. They are playing right into Minnesota's strengths on defense, and their weaknesses is Minnesota's strengths on offense. And I think you are in here for a potential upset. Now I don't know if they're going to win the game. That's not what I'm not definitively going to be like go put your money on them money line. But I do feel like they're going to cover, and I'm going to place that bet with some confidence. So. Well, anyway, that is going to be it for today's video and today's episode. As always, if you enjoy the content, please like the video, subscribe, comment, share it with a friend, family member, anyone else who would be interested in this type of content. The channel is very new; it's just started, but it's exciting. The growth has been exciting. We're up to 27 subscribers or something hilarious, but I really enjoy it. I enjoy doing the breakdowns. I do this in my spare time. It's a passion of mine, and I'm gonna get as many done as I can each week. And if you have any suggestions for games you want covered, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'll do my best to get to as many as I can. I already have a schedule of games that I'm going to do, and then I take into consideration subscribers' games they want. I just did a game, the last video on Jacksonville State and Kennesaw State. That's not a that's not a game that would be covered by many people. So, but anyway, that's going to be it. As always, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.